Why did gas prices skyrocket across the world when Russia invaded Ukraine? Why are big tech companies suddenly moving factories from China to Vietnam, India, and Mexico? And why are some countries talking about replacing the US dollar in global trade? The answer is one powerful word: geopolitics. Geopolitics, the way countries compete, fight, and cooperate, is no longer something you just hear about on the news. It's now one of the biggest forces shaping your money, your investments, and the future of the global economy. In this video, I'll break down how geopolitics is changing the way investments work around the world, in simple terms, with real examples, and what it means for you as a beginner investor. Let's start with the basics. When you hear the word geopolitics, it might sound like something complicated, reserved for politicians, diplomats, or military experts. But for investors, geopolitics is simply about how political decisions, global conflicts, and international relationships affect money and markets. Think of investing like sailing a boat. The business or company you invest in is your boat. Normally, you just worry about how strong your boat is, how much profit the company makes, how good its products are, and how fast it's growing. But geopolitics is the weather around you. You might have the best boat in the world, but if there's a sudden storm, like a war, a trade ban, or a major election that changes policy, your journey can become very rough, very fast. This is why investors around the world are paying much more attention to geopolitics than ever before. For example, imagine you invested in European energy companies before 2022. The Russia-Ukraine war didn't just cause tragedy on the ground, it also disrupted global oil and gas supply. Prices went up overnight. Some companies gained huge profits, while others collapsed under new sanctions. That's geopolitics in action. Or take technology. For decades, China was considered the factory of the world. Companies relied heavily on Chinese manufacturing. But rising tensions between the US and China, especially in technology like semiconductors, has made investors rethink. Is it safe to rely on one country for such critical products? That's why you now see a shift toward Vietnam, India, and Mexico, and investment money moving with it. So, in simple terms, geopolitics adds a new layer of risk and opportunity to investing. It's no longer enough to just ask, is this company profitable? You also need to ask, what's happening in the world that could affect this company? For beginners, this may sound overwhelming, but don't worry. You don't need to become a foreign policy expert. What you do need is awareness, the ability to connect world events to your investments. Now that we understand what geopolitics means for investors, let's dive into the big shifts happening right now. 1. Trade wars and AMP. Supply chains. The first major change is trade wars and supply chains. For years, globalization made investing easier. Companies could manufacture anywhere, ship anywhere, and sell anywhere. But today, politics is breaking that flow apart. Take the US-China trade war. Higher tariffs, restrictions on exports, and growing distrust have forced companies to rethink where they produce goods. That's why we're seeing manufacturing move to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. For investors, this means supply chains are no longer invisible. A single political decision can change where billions of dollars flow. Companies that adapt, like those expanding in Southeast Asia, may thrive. Those that stay stuck in unstable regions may face huge risks. 2. Energy and AMP. Natural resources. Second, energy. The Russia-Ukraine war didn't just disrupt Europe. It reshaped global energy markets. Countries that depended on Russian oil and gas suddenly had to scramble for alternatives. Prices spiked worldwide. But here's the long-term effect. Governments are now investing heavily in renewable energy, nuclear power, and local energy production to reduce dependency on foreign powers. This has created massive opportunities in solar, wind, batteries, and even hydrogen energy. Investors are paying attention because energy is no longer just an environmental story, it's a security story. 3. Technology and AMP. Security. Third, technology. We're living in a world where technology is not just business, it's national security. Semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity are now geopolitical battlegrounds. The US restricting chip exports to China wasn't just about business competition, it was about national power. China, in response, is investing billions in domestic chip production. For investors, this means tech is no longer just about who has the newest gadget. It's about who controls the future of technology. Expect growth in companies tied to cybersecurity, semiconductor manufacturing, and AI innovation. 4. Friends whoring and AMP. Regional investing. Another key shift is friends whoring. This means countries prefer to trade and invest with allies rather than rivals. The US is strengthening ties with Mexico and Canada. Europe is deepening partnerships within the EU. Even Africa is building stronger regional trade blocs. For investors, this opens opportunities in regional markets that were once overlooked. India, Southeast Asia, and Africa are seeing more foreign investment because they're viewed as safer, friendlier regions. 5. Sanctions and AMP. Currency shifts. Finally, sanctions and currencies. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Western countries froze hundreds of billions of dollars in Russian assets. This shocked many nations. It showed how vulnerable global money can be. Now, some countries are looking for alternatives to the US dollar. China is pushing the yuan. The BRICS nations have even discussed a new shared currency. This doesn't mean the dollar will collapse tomorrow. It's still the dominant currency, but it does mean we're entering a more fragmented financial world. For investors, this brings risk but also opportunity, particularly in emerging markets experimenting with new systems. So, these are the 5 key ways geopolitics is reshaping investments: trade wars, energy, technology, friends whoring, and currencies. Next, let's break down what all this means for you as a beginner, the risks you should watch for, and the opportunities you can take advantage of. Alright, now that we've seen the big global shifts, let's bring it down to the beginner level. What does this mean for you? First, let's talk about risks. Volatility. Geopolitical shocks create sudden market swings. Wars, sanctions, or political instability can crash a stock or even an entire sector overnight. For beginners, this means you must accept that global investing comes with uncertainty. Policy changes. A country can suddenly ban exports, raise tariffs, or nationalize industries. Investors in that region could face losses. Concentration risk. If all your money is tied up in one country or one sector, and that country gets hit by a geopolitical storm, you take the full impact. But it's not all bad news. Geopolitics also creates opportunities. Renewable energy. As countries seek independence from foreign oil and gas, clean energy projects are booming. Solar, wind, and battery storage are becoming some of the hottest investment areas. Cybersecurity and AMP. Tech infrastructure. With governments treating tech as a national priority, companies in cybersecurity, AI, and semiconductor manufacturing are poised for growth. Emerging markets. Nations like India, Vietnam, and parts of Africa are benefiting from friends whoring. Investors who diversify into these regions may capture early growth. So, what's the key lesson? Balance. Don't chase only the exciting new opportunities. Don't hide completely from the risks either. The smart approach is diversification, spreading your money across sectors and regions so no single event can wipe out your portfolio. As a beginner, you don't need to pick individual stocks in every country. You can use ETFs, exchange-traded funds, that track global markets. For example, an ETF focusing on renewable energy or emerging markets lets you benefit from these geopolitical shifts without having to analyze every company on your own. In other words, you don't need to predict the future. You just need to position yourself so that, whatever happens, you're protected and have the chance to grow. Next, I'll give you practical steps you can take as a beginner investor to stay informed, protect your money, and make smarter decisions in a world where geopolitics matters more than ever. Let's wrap this up with some practical, beginner-friendly tips for investing in a world shaped by geopolitics. 1. Stay informed, but filter the noise. Not every headline matters, but major global events do. Pay attention to wars, elections, trade deals, and sanctions. These can impact energy prices, supply chains, or even entire stock markets. Tip: instead of watching endless news, follow trusted financial sources that connect world events to markets. 2. Use ETFs and AMP global funds as a beginner. You don't need to guess which individual company will benefit. ETFs that focus on emerging markets, renewable energy, or technology sectors let you ride broader trends safely. 3. Think long-term trends. Don't get caught up in daily market swings. Instead, focus on decade-long shifts: energy transition, fossil fuels, right-pointing arrow, renewables, technology arms race, AI, chips, cybersecurity, global power shifts, emerging markets growing faster than developed ones. These trends will matter far more than short-term politics. 4. Diversify your portfolio. Spread your investments across countries and industries. If one region suffers from a geopolitical storm, others can balance it out. 5. Stay calm during crises. When a geopolitical shock happens, markets usually overreact at first. Beginners who panic sell often lose. Instead, remember that crisis often creates opportunity for patient investors. So here's the bottom line: geopolitics is no longer just background noise. It's now a driving force in global investments. From supply chains to energy, from technology to currency, the world's political battles are shaping where money flows and how markets move. For beginner investors, this might sound intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. With awareness, diversification, and a focus on long-term trends, you can protect yourself from risks and take advantage of new opportunities. In a world where politics and money are more connected than ever, your smartest investment is knowledge. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And tell me in the comments, which global event do you think will shape investments the most in the next 10 years?